me. Christina, do you want me to go directly into answering some of the questions that were posted, or are you looking for more of a just introduction or preamble?
Yeah, just the introduction and preamble, I think. So for both you and Dr. Wee, if you would just talk through changes that have occurred, sort of how you're managing that. I'm sure it's presented challenges. I'm sure you've also found some silver linings in the situation. So if you could just take us through your current status.
Okay, so the current status is that we knew in early March that this was something that we were going to have to attend to. We knew also that our spring break was coming, and so we were trying to hold off to send people away until the actual spring break time. We ended up having to go about 3 days early because things were moving very, very quickly at that time. So on March 18th, is when we sent students home for the most part. At that time, it was such early days that we felt it was safer for them and for us and for the community just to get them to where they were going anyway for spring break, and give us some time to build capacity and understanding to respond to this. At that time, we had announced that we might come back after Easter break, which was going to be April 14th. And that was going to give us a good, 2.5 week period to sort of monitor. It became clear that that was not going to happen, so they stayed gone, so to speak. There were about 100 and some odd students who, for a variety of reasons, couldn't go home. These were international students who literally couldn't get flights because airports were closed or flights were canceled, or there were visa issues, whatever, and some domestic students as well who needed to stay on campus. So we ended up with a number of families in the Decorah general area, regional area. There were a couple of families in Cresco and other places as well who opened up their homes to take a couple of these students and host them during this time. We're so grateful for that partnership. And then we have about 45, 50 students who are still on campus. And so that's where we are right now. We're heavy in scenario planning. Yesterday, I sent out a message to the community and essentially did what I would consider putting one tent pole in the ground about next year, which is just to say it's our intention to pivot now from the question of if we will come back to when and how we will come back, so that we can start thinking ourselves into this new reality, even though it's 4 months away. So that's that. I would say that's sort of the state of play right now. Our cabinet meets daily. We have an emergency response team that's been meeting at least twice a week, and we're now moving that group away from a sort of triage posture to a planning posture in a variety of different working groups. So I'll stop there and let my esteemed colleague, Dr. Wee, say a few words.
Well, good morning, Madam President. It's always good to see you.
You too.
Yeah, I'm glad that both of us are smiling.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, allow me to just recap 3 things. As Christina mentioned, the changes that have occurred, the challenges up to now, and also the positive. Those are the 3 things. I still remember the evening. It was a Sunday. I was on a conference call. Are you folks able to hear me? I just want to do some sound check.
Yes.
It was Sunday evening, and I was on a conference Zoom meeting with all the superintendents. We have a very tight relationship with the K-12, so anything that impacts them impacts us. And that evening, we were talking about continuing to open, because many of us were coming from spring break. 2 hours later, the governor changed our lives. And so that Sunday night, when we started meeting at 7, wanting to open the next day, by 9 o'clock, everything changed. So as a group, we have 24 school districts in our 5,000 square miles. We decided, okay, that's the time to switch to online. And so from that point onwards, we basically started switching to online. And the fortunate thing is that 70% of our faculty already are able to do online. So what we did was basically switch the others to it. And the other thing is we also have to make sure that we take care of our businesses. You may not realize, but last year, the training that we provide to businesses, we touched 23,000 people. So now we have to work with our businesses because we're not able to do face-to-face in person for both our safety and for their safety. So how do we connect with our businesses? And you may not know this, but in our 5,000 square miles, there are over 7,000 small businesses. And we have a small business development office. How do we support them during this time? And in terms of career technical education, such as welding, nursing, so on and so forth, once we close the school, we wouldn't be able to have the massive number of people coming for hands-on. And at that time, the hospital were also limiting access. So the clinicals became a problem. And then down the road, the assisted living places closed down because of some of those outbreaks somewhere else. So you find that clinical became an issue for us. But one of the things that we found out is that the challenges that we face is nothing compared with some of the emergency folks and also healthcare. So we started connecting with them to say, what can we do? So as of today, our hospital beds, which we use for our health-related programs, they are out of our facility. They're basically with emergency management and also with the hospital. We also have a respiratory program. So our ventilators, they're all gone now. We also have blood pressure equipment, so on and so forth. We also shared with our friends. Gloves, gowns, face masks, those are the things that are challenging to our partners. Guess what? We are also providing with them. So as you can see, as a college, when we talk about spring semester closing, it's not just about us, it's about our students, our K-12 partners, our businesses, our emergency and healthcare partners. So it's not as easy as saying closing. What we have to do is, what does the close impact a large scale? And as you know, as of today, we have 8 full counties in our 5,000 square miles, and 3 of them have higher level of restriction than the other 5. How do you deal with that? So those are the things we need to take care of. And the other thing that I'm very pleased is that our students are very resilient. Every year, our new students coming in, we have what we call care calls. So about 2 weeks into the semester, our faculty and staff will actually volunteer and call those students to find out how they're doing. Because many of our students are first generation. It's the first person in their family to go to college. What are their barriers? How do they navigate the process? And so when we switch online that Sunday night, we started talking about how do we take care of our students. And I want you to know over 100 of our colleagues volunteered and called every one of those students, including our high school. Because even some of the high school students may not have done online before. And most importantly, some of our students are facing technology at home. They may not even have internet. And even if they have it, it could be very, very spotty. And of course, many of our students have children. All of a sudden, they have children at home because they're not bringing them to daycare just to keep them safe. How do you balance home life with homework? So we have to do that. So we have made several thousand calls so far, and it is really interesting. And the other thing that we're also looking at is how do you set up technology for our faculty and staff at home? Just like our student, some of our folks may be living in remote areas. So that's not easy to do. And the other thing is we're basically taking the entire school system from a face-to-face to working remotely. So for example, simple thing as phone system. When somebody calls NICC, when we were here, somebody will pick up the phone. How do you translate that phone system into people that are actually spread out all over 5,000 square miles. So we actually have to translate our system from in-person to online. And I'm pleased to say that we have overcome that. And I can tell you that some of the positives I've seen so far are how resilient our folks are. When the chips are down, how we come together. I really believe that the character of a place, of a community, is not just when times are good, but when the times are challenging all of us, how do we look beyond ourselves? And I can tell you that that's what I'm seeing with my colleagues, how they come together. We have colleagues basically telling faculty, don't worry, I'll help you get online. We'll get through this. And people are doing things. For example, right now we have somebody who is having coffee in the morning, Zoom, virtual coffee. So at 6 o'clock, for those people who are early on, if they want to, they get online and they basically have coffee together. So when we are away, one of the positive things I see is people still want to connect. So the creative part of how to connect. We also have a series of workshops for our faculty and staff, like Google. You know, sometimes we're too busy, we didn't have it. So during this time when they're at home, when they have time, we get them on. I can tell you that we pay attention to all the guidelines from the county, from the state and the federal, and we take that and we disseminate it to our people. You know, the question I see, and it is very positive, is how can we as a college of the community continue to be nimble, continue to be creative, continue to be adaptive, continue to be cohesive, continue to be compassionate, and continue to be resilient, because it is very obvious that this COVID-19 is not just about NICC. We have to think beyond our border and help those around us. And I can tell you that it has really revealed to us that ongoing, there are tremendous opportunities for the college to reset, to reinvent ourselves. Education, as we see it, is no longer going to be the same. The positive about COVID-19 is challenge us to reframe the way we think about possibilities. So I don't want to be paralyzed by this. We're never going to do that. But instead, how are we going to pivot? How are we going to adjust? So I just want to say thank you to the people today, and thank you to our community for supporting us. We are touching lives, and we have to pay attention to that. And so as a college, I just want you to know that this has impacted us, but we're not going to look at the negatives. We are going to learn from it, and we're going to become stronger. And we are. And I look at my colleagues, what they're doing right now, it shows the character of the place. And I'm very proud of it. So I'll stop right there. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Wee. Dr. Ward, can you maybe talk a little bit about the transition to being technology-based and moving online? May have been a bigger hurdle for Luther?
So on the one hand, yes, it was a bigger hurdle in the sense that we, where Dr. Wee's institution has a group of faculty who are, for the most part, very adept at remote learning, distance learning, online learning. That is not something that Luther has been known for. Certainly, many of our faculty were familiar with some of the technology associated with it, but the bread and butter of Luther College is face-to-face residential instruction, right? So it was a huge pivot for us, and I think to echo what Dr. Wee said, the ability of a faculty with no history of doing this kind of outreach and this kind of instruction through computer screens and through phones in almost overnight was gratifying. Doesn't even begin to get at it. It was inspiring to see the degree to which our faculty recognized that the main thing was to stay connected to students, whatever the modality is. Stay connected to students. And so we have a good team of folks who have been leading the way. Our Center for Excellence in Learning and Teaching, our Associate Dean, who's responsible for faculty development, and our instructional technology folks in the library, formed a kind of ready response team to try to figure out ways to make resources available to faculty, to do online Zoom meetings, to learn things new. They did modules of sort of best practices in remote learning, those kinds of things. And the faculty, for the most part, have understood their role to be connecting with students and to ensuring the continuity of an experience for students when so much of what these students love about Luther College was taken away. So one of the hardest conversations I had early on was when I had to tell our seniors in athletics that their spring seasons were done, right? That was crushing to tell our Nordic choir that their spring concert that they've been planning for is not going to happen, because those are the kinds of experiences, in addition to the excellent academics at Luther, that bring students to our campus. And all of a sudden that was gone. So, you know, part of the challenge for me has been not only operational, although that's obviously important, but it's been emotional and psychological in terms of how to hold the anxiety of an entire community, and how to hold the grief of a group of students who are not going to be able to complete the year in the way they thought to, how to hold the grief of a senior class whose 4 years were just about to culminate in this series of ritual moments and commencement and the sort of final gatherings and the pinning ceremonies and whatnot, and tell them that that's not going to happen. So that's been enormously difficult, but we've been so creative, really so creative at thinking about how to do things differently, how to respond to the moment, and to recognize that we can't measure what we're doing against an ideal that is not available to us, but rather we have to measure what we're doing against the possibilities that are available to us, and to see this moment as one where we really get to show the world what it means to be Luther College. And so it's been hard, it's been exhausting. In my conversations with faculty, I hear similar themes. You know, this is exhausting. This is, you would think that being home and being able to wear my house slippers would mean that this was less difficult than, you know, going physically to my classroom and teaching, but it's not. It's really hard. And to Dr. Wee's point, a lot of what's happening is not curricular in the sense of delivering content or teaching chemistry or teaching English online, but is that kind of outreach to students. How are you doing? Are you holding up okay? Do you have the technology you need? Do you have the internet capability you need? Do we need to get you a hotspot? Do we need to get you a laptop? You know, do you have a space in which to work? So we hear stories about our students that are making clear how complicated this is. So a student who's living in a household with a bunch of other brothers and sisters and a mom and dad who are also at home, who maybe have just lost their jobs, who don't have a private place to go and be quiet and be in a Zoom classroom, those are challenging anecdotes to hear. And so a lot of what our faculty are facing are these kinds of personal stories that they might not have known about their students, and helping them troubleshoot how to manage these things, even as they themselves are trying to troubleshoot and manage their own emotions and their own needs as individuals and families who've been put into this situation as well.
Yeah, so I find that sort of sentiment to be universally true, right? So when I talk with emergency management or public health, like many times when there's disaster, if you will, there's other industries or segments of our population that can help lift those that are down, right? And now it's so hard to find anyone who isn't facing some type of challenge.
Right.
And I think so often of high school seniors and those that are in college and those experiences that we may all think back to and how they built character or lifelong friends or where you met a spouse potentially, you know, whatever that might be. And I would like for both of you to weigh in on this, but do you see students sort of doing their own reset and reinvention, and are they still having some of those experiences just in new ways?
Yeah, certainly. And one of the things that's really fun for me is I sort of came to Luther already pretty active on social media, on Instagram and Twitter and so on, and to see the ways in which students are responding to me and to my presence on social media has been really fun. And so I get a sort of window into some of that in ways that I might not if I weren't participating in that way. But they're coming up with clubs, they're coming up with parties, they're coming up with they'll do virtual jigsaw puzzles together while they're online. Certainly gaming, things like that, but they are coming up with ways to do this. Some of our choirs have done these wonderful experiments with coming up with virtual choirs where they're putting stuff out into the world and reminding people that it's not ideal if you're a chorister to be singing to a screen, literally, as opposed to standing next to your neighbor and hearing the resonance of their voices next to you. But again, we're not measuring against the ideal. We're measuring against what's possible for us in this moment. And they're doing enormously great work. I'm truly, truly proud of them.
Dr. Wee, how about you in relation to the student experience? What are you seeing from them?
Well, our student population is very different from Luther.
Right.
We have the K-12 students all the way to somebody who could be 70 years old. And majority of our folks before COVID-19, they're working adults. Over 70% of our students are part-time. So you find that for them, when they come on our campus, is because they have classes and then they go. And so they have to juggle many things in their lives. But I can also see the community building. So for example, our nursing program, many of them are actually working adults with families. And it's a 2-year commitment, very intense. And they form that bond. And that's what gets them through the program. And during this time, that particular relationship continues. And they have tight relationship with the faculty. And so you find that in their own way, they're supporting each other. And I like what Dr. Ward talked about grief. People don't realize that that is a very real thing. How do you deal with it? So for us, when students are not able to work together, we actually have online counseling for our students that they can call. And students who basically have issues with class work, our learning center, where our faculty will actually Zoom with the student, either one-on-one or a group, to help them through. So there are different ways of community building, different ways of taking care of each other. So you find that for us, our population is very diverse, so we have to have different ways for them to connect and for them to grieve, but at the same time, how to help them say, what's next? Because you can't stuck at grief. What's next? How do we finish? Simulation for our career technical education, for example, continue to move them forward. And so it is that's simple, but it's also so difficult because our population is spanning across not only age, but gender and life experiences.
So Dr. Wee, we'll just stay with you and then come back to Dr. Ward too. What are your benchmarks, or how are you gauging moving forward with any, for you, Dr. Wee, any summer courses, and then what does the fall semester or even the whole next academic year look like?
Well, our summer enrollment is trending well. We are 96% to target. So that's good. You know, we never stop engaging our students. And in the fall, we don't know quite yet because, as I said, many of our students are working adult. They don't make decision just like other students. Okay, I'm going to go to college. No, I have life. You know, so they're going to take a look at life and they're going to say, can I, you know, go to college? So many of our students make last minute decisions, but once they show an interest, we keep with them. Okay. And then we deal with barriers, transportation, childcare, technology. So our recruiting process and taking care of a student is very different. It's no longer just, are you coming to NICC? Our question is, what else in your life is either going to facilitate your coming or not coming? And what can we do to help you come? So you peel off one barrier after another. So for us, we have high hopes for fall. There are people who are laid off in our area. And you may not know this, but NICC, we have a rapid response team. We work with companies. Anytime there's a layoff, we work with the company. If they allow us, they have to allow us to basically connect one-on-one with those people who are laid off. And we work with them on unemployment, workforce, so on and so forth. And if there's opportunity for them to go back for training, let's lay out the options. And we have quite a number of layoffs in our area. So how do we work with them? I still remember 2008, 2009 when the recession starts. This is almost like a repeat performance. And so our connection with businesses allow us to do that. So when you look at our fall enrollment, it's not just the regular high school students coming in. It's not just the working adults, but it's also the people who right now felt that their bottom just dropped off. You know, they don't have a job. And how do we provide that safety net? How do we bring them up and just say, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. Let's explore the path and let's find one that's good for you. So I do not know the number for fall, but I do expect that we will continue to serve our people. And for our companies who are right now in the situation, our enrollment also involves them. How can we provide training, for example, safety to them? And those of them who are actually having people working offsite, how do they then reformulate to bring people back? So we're thinking of training that our companies are going to need. The small businesses, for example, what we found very intriguing. On March 24th, with the Chamber and Economic Development, Winneshik, Stephanie, Christina, thank you. Small Business Development, ECIA in Dubuque, and also a Greater Dubuque Development Corporation. We launched a hotline on March 24th. As of today, we have served over 500 small companies. So how do you navigate the state process, the federal process, the program and services? Some of them didn't know about financial. How do you get the form? So when you ask about enrollment for the fall, it's not just a typical credit side. I'm looking at also the business side, the number of people that we touch. Like I said, last year, we touched 23,000 people who are not in what you call the credit side of NICC. So our enrollment picture is kind of complicated.
Sure, I fully appreciate the dynamics are a little different there too. And I think we can all appreciate that whatever you may forecast in this moment could be completely different tomorrow, right? So
Yes.
it's a conversation here, right? Dr. Ward, how about for Luther College? Do you have any projections for the 2021 school year?
As Dr. Wee noted, our sector, the residential liberal arts college sector, is quite different in the sense that, first of all, summer is not something that is heavily enrolled. We offer some summer courses for undergraduate credit, but not too many. For the most part, summer is about summer camps, those kinds of things, and then we drive towards the fall. So no, I think anybody who said that they have a good sense of what fall is going to look like would be, you know, telling a happy tale that is not borne out by any sort of data at this point. We've tried to remove chairs from the path for enrollment. We announced yesterday that we're going ACT and SAT test optional for the fall. Part of that was just a practical decision because the tests are not being offered in person right now. And so the students who had taken the tests earlier, you know, in the year would have had them, but those who were waiting until a little bit closer to the summer were out of luck. So we just removed that barrier. We also removed moved our deadline from our application deadline from May 1st, our deposit deadline, from May 1st to June 1st to try to build a little bit more time in. But even that, I think realistically, we have to understand is just a point in time. You know, in our sector, we refer to summer melt. And that's the number of students who've deposited who just never show up. And typically our summer melt numbers are very favorable to Luther. We tend to hold on to the students who've deposited fairly well, and they do then actually enroll in September. We don't know what that's going to look like this year, and I think we anticipate that summer melt will be more of a feature now than it has been in the past, partly because of the uncertainty in general. Partly because families themselves are experiencing furloughs and layoffs, and their financial situations are changing by the day. So a family that may think they can still manage to come, you know, to send their child to Luther in the fall right now, if they get laid off in the summer, then that, you know, that changes that calculus for them. So that said, we have been really aggressive in trying to reframe our visit opportunities, which has been sort of how we recruit students, right? We bring them literally to Decorah, Iowa. They come to our beautiful campus, they tour the facilities, they have great conversations with faculty and staff, they go downtown, they you know, have ice cream at the Sugar Bowl, they get a Mead's Pizza, they wander Water Street, and that's what sells them, right? That's what convinces them that this is the place to be. That's taken away from us right now. So we're doing very creative, fun, engaging virtual meetings. We're doing virtual parents meetings, virtual student meetings for prospective students. We're doing virtual tours. And as we're able in the summer, we may try to do some more in-person tours on a sort of staggered basis, you know, depending on how the numbers are looking in terms of infection rate and so on in Winnebago County. But every variable that has typically been at our disposal is now not at our disposal. And so we just have to do the best we can and hope that our maneuvers around this reality are still going to project us as a college of value for these families, and hope that we can bring in a good class. But I think the reality for all of us is that these will not be the robust enrollments that we could typically expect. And I think we have to lean into that sort of sober expectation, and then still do the best we can.
Fair. Dr. Wee, you've been doing virtual tours of the campus as well, correct?
Yes, we have. We also have one-on-one. And over the last few years, we have really beefed up our technology, because we really know that some of the folks who really want to access our education and training might not be able to come. So how do we still connect them with the college? So virtual tour, Zoom, the technology that we have been putting in place, making sure that our working adults can access to it. We have what we call a Z degree right now, and that's basically 8 weeks, 8 weeks, 8 weeks, 8 weeks. So for our working adults, that's what they can do. So for them to access that, we need to visit with them. So technology is a friend. It does not replace everything, but looking at our population, how best to connect with them. We will continue to do that. And I can tell you that, I wish I could say, well, I thought about COVID-19 coming and that's why we invested in the technology. No, I can't claim that, But the technology that we have put in place, both for infrastructure and also for our support personnel for online training. Right now we have 6 colleagues who basically support our faculty and staff on online classes. So when this happened, all of a sudden, those years of investment paid off big time. We already have the infrastructure. This summer, all our classes will be online because, as you know, Christina, we never know the restriction. How is it going to come on or off? And so for us, definitely using different channels, different technology available to us to engage our students is important. We are beginning to do even more with our military, active and also veterans, and many of them are all over. So how do we engage them when they are still in training and all that for our education? So for us, is using technology to look at the population out there and say, whom can we serve even more? So yeah, it's going to ongoing, and we learn every day, such as a lot of people, Zoom is great, but it has its own limitations, such as security. Okay, how do we put the layer on to do that?
Definitely. Let's change gears just a little bit, and maybe just stay with you here for a moment, Dr. Wee. We had a question submitted about the partnership between NICC and Luther in terms of beginning at NICC and then progressing through their bachelor's degree or at Luther. And I know you already have a couple of programs that you've got that partnership built. So could you maybe review what those programs are and if there's any plans for more of that type of partnership?
I love working with Dr. Ward.
I love working with you too.
When Dr. Ward came on board, I asked if I could visit with her, and she said yes. And Dr. Ward was the first president to visit NICC campus. I want everybody to know how appreciative I felt that day, to have the Luther president on our campus. We are 12 miles apart. We are in this together, especially COVID-19, we're in it even deeper together. Our sustainability and Luther's sustainability for Northeast Iowa is vital. We cannot have one of us not here. They provide an excellent residential experience, we don't. So we can complement each other really well. The social work program is one of them. We have a lot of other opportunities. In fact, we have talked, our colleagues have talked too about other opportunities. How can we create more opportunity to bring people so that both colleges can take care of them, especially people who first generation have never been thinking about the possibility of going to college. But guess what? With both colleges, how can we make their dream come true? And so I see a lot of opportunity going forward. The social work and some of the other things that we have in place, that's just the beginning. In fact, I was going to visit with the president, I think in March, and then COVID-19 happened. We couldn't. And she has been busy then, and we have. But I can assure everybody that communication channel is open, that collaborative channel is open. I can't wait for the president to tell me, hey, let's go do this. You know, that can-do attitude is awesome. So I'm going to turn to the president for her to chime in.
Yeah, I think one of the really disappointing things about COVID-19 for me, other than the fact that it's, you know, not a great disease to get, is that it really sort of intervened into some momentum that we had at Luther College in general, internally, but also some momentum, for example, with Dr. Wee at NICC. We were so excited about the social work partnership. And I think that we were starting to noodle on other things that we could do. I think from our perspective at Luther, it's always important to try to have a faculty champion to align a program in that way. And people saw what we did with social work, and you could see them sort of saying, let me think through this. And so we're just starting to have that sort of brainstorming energy around this partnership, and then it's like a needle scratching across the record in so many ways. I just revealed how old I am by referring to an actual needle on a record, but bear with me.
You're amongst friends here, Dr. Ward.
Right. So that's disappointing. But I think that, as Dr. Wee said, the minute we're able to move out of this current sort of triage posture into forward-looking planning, once we get to the other side of it, I think we'll be there. I'm excited about it. I know he is. And we had an on-campus. I went down to NICC, as Dr. Wee said, and spent the morning and met with a lot of his team, had a pork tenderloin sandwich on campus, took some Norse Head cookies along with him, and Dr. Wee and his team came up to Luther in, 500 years ago. When was that? February, I don't know. Yeah, and we had a meeting with our team and his team on our campus and had lunch and so on. And so I feel like we've had to push pause for obvious reasons, but I look forward to when we get to push play again.
Yeah. Our commitment to Luther is non-negotiable. I just want everybody to know our commitment, to work with Luther College is non-negotiable.
That's really great to hear. I applaud both of you on that effort. I shared a question with both of you ahead of time in regards to the Brown University president and his comments on college campuses and that they must reopen in the fall, and giving some thoughts on how it's done. One of those points being public health protocol and the control of infectious disease, and testing being an absolute prerequisite. So again, it may be a little preemptive to ask these types of questions for your fall semester, but what are your thoughts around that editorial? And beyond the public health component, also, I want to start to talk a little bit about how the community and the rest of us on this call would support your communities, both students and staff. So big question, but if you can address the public health side, what you might foresee in that, and then give us some tips on how we lean in.
So I want to start by saying that Christina Paxson, who's the president of Brown University, is an economist, and Brown University is a college of university of about 10,000 students in Providence, Rhode Island, adjacent to Boston, Massachusetts, and so the context there is foundationally different from the context here. We also have an ace in the hole at Luther College, which is that one of our regents is Michael Osterholm. And so we have, I think, a very current and realistic sense of what is possible and not possible, and what we should hope for and what we should not consider a panacea. And so the notion of universal testing, absent any sense of whether those tests are available, efficacious, whether what we're going to use them for, how we would administer them, and how often, just to say testing is, I think, not a helpful metric for us to imagine. So we'll be guided by Iowa Department of Public Health, and certainly through Winneshiek Public Health as well, to understand what is available to us and what we should try to accomplish. So for us, the question right now, knowing that tests are not widely available at this point, our approach has to be based on questions of mitigation. As I said in my letter to the community yesterday, we can tell ourselves stories to make us feel better, but we have to recognize that we can't eliminate all risk. We don't have the answers at this point. It's too early in this pandemic. We don't know enough about how the virus works. We don't know enough. We don't have borders into the county. We don't have checkpoints on Highway 52 and Highway 9. So we have to be clear about what we're able to quote promise and what we're not able to promise. With that, I think that we are very clear about the fact that we have to have some mechanism for monitoring student health on campus and employee and faculty and staff health on campus, and then work with the community to think about what that might look like. So right now we're in scenario planning, as I said. We're trying to figure out ways to develop a calendar that's more flexible than the one we have right now. Try to develop ways to bring students in more gradually than we do right now. Try to recognize that we'll need to have spaces on campus that are available for students to isolate if they have symptoms, things along those lines. So we're thinking very, very practically with the information we have today, understanding that we have to, as I said before, put at least one tent pole in the ground so that we can start to build plans around the expectation that at some point we have to come back and be face-to-face. Now, it may be face-to-face 6 or 7 feet apart. It may be face-to-face with a mask. It may be face-to-face in ways that for Luther will be curious and different. But this is who Luther is, and this is what this community needs, frankly. The community is not served by us doing remote and distance learning. So I look forward to working with the community as we gather more information across time, as we're able to think in terms of what developments will have occurred in the next few weeks and across the summer. But I think the notion of universal testing, while I understand why Dr. Paxson made that declaration, is maybe not a declaration that we can count on. I don't think she can count on it either, frankly, but that's an editorial comment that has no bearing on our conversation here, really.
Sure. Dr. Wee, what are your thoughts on that particular piece?
We are a public place. That means people can come and go. Right now, we're planning on a safety protocol, so that when we have more and more people come back on our campuses, both of them 100 miles apart, in 2 different counties, one of higher restriction, one lower. Just think about that. We also have 7 centers that are affiliated with local communities and local school districts. They also have certain restriction. So you find that we are a public place. That means people come and go. How do you do that? And the other thing also is we do not ever want to complicate the work of the public health entities. Okay? How do we work with them to support what we have? As Dr. Ward says, it's always ideal to say, bring everybody back in and let's test. Hey, the logistics of it. And the other thing, we're in sometime a litigious society. What about liability? What happens somebody is saying that they got sick because they come on campus. Now, how is that going to happen? So I would love to have people back again. But how do we do it in a safe way? So I appreciate Brown University. If they can do it, okay, that would be a model. But I think Dr. Ward and myself know that it's not that simple. Safety for everybody is still the top priority. And then you build the pieces around it. And the pieces also include the public health and also the federal and state guidelines. So if you take all those pieces together, it's not that easy. And it's really, I don't think it's up to the individual college to say, let's go do this. We're part of a community. Our action impacts everybody. So that is the consideration that Dr. Ward and myself, we have to think about it every day.
Absolutely. We're edging in on 10 o'clock here. So if anyone wants to put any questions in the chat, happy to try to get a couple of those in. But otherwise, Dr. Wee, as long as you sort of have the mic here, do you have ideas of how the community might continue to support you, or new ways that maybe we offer added support to NICC? Again, both, I think, from a student and a staff or faculty standpoint.
Well, I can't even begin to say thank you to the community, much less ask for more support. I mean, I look at you, Christina, how you have partnered with us on the hotline for small businesses, Stephanie Fromm. I saw that Senator Breitbach might be on, the support from the state level. I look at the mayor, how they have been, leading the community to make everybody safe. For us, it's not to ask. For us, it's to say, how can we continue to be a part of the solution? This impacts everybody. So for us as NICC, that's why we share our equipment, because people need it. We will do whatever we need to make sure that we get through this together. We have been in operation for over 50 years, and we will be here for more than 50 years going forward. The community has continued to be more than gracious to us. And that's why the word community is in our name, and we never forget it. And there are three things that the college focus on every day. Three things. Number one, improve lives. Two, drive business success. And three, enhance community vitality. Again, let me repeat that. Improve lives, drive business success, and enhance community vitality. That's what we focus on. That's our mission. That's why we exist. And we are able to do all three because throughout our 5,000 square miles, small community, large community, they support us. So in fact, Christina, instead of asking, allow me to take this opportunity to say thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. You allow us to exist for those three things.
Thank you, Dr. Wee. Dr. Ward, what are your comments on that?
Well, I would echo everything that Dr. Wee said, and I would just add that from the time I was being interviewed for this position till the time I accepted it, through the initial meetings, through the inauguration, I've said a sentence over and over and over, and it's never been more true, which is, Luther College is Decorah's college, and Decorah, Iowa is Luther's town. And we are so inextricably linked. And I think you can feel that on a daily basis, especially right now when the students are gone and businesses are closed. It is just imperative that we be Velcroed together as we proceed through this.
Definitely. Dr. Ward, are there any students still in the area that need any assistance?
I think for right now, we're good. Like I said, we have a number of families, 35, 40 families who have taken in some of our students. Some of them have taken one student, a couple of families have taken two. I know of one who's taken three. and you know, just great hospitality and generosity to host these students, and so that's great. The question that we're asking right now is how to start to repatriate, so to speak, those students onto campus, and how to also support our students who are on campus. So even though there's you know, we don't need anything in particular in terms of, I mean, they still have access to dining on campus and so on. It's just lonely because we're asking them to be distant from each other, right? And so it may be that, you know, a kind note to someone might be helpful. And so, you know, let me think about ways to make that possible, because many of the students who are here are international students, and so they're not only far from home, literally far from home, but also then asked to isolate even further.
Yeah, well, let me just sort of generically leave the door open for both of you, in that if ever it's felt that there's a way the community can help support any new challenge on campus, please use, I would say both the chamber, and Stephanie's not here, but I would throw economic development in that as well. But if we can ever help to create those connections and help support you and your roles and students that are here, please just let us know what those things are.
Absolutely, thank you.
Christina, while Stephanie isn't here, I am a member of the Economic Development Board. I'm on their executive committee. I would echo your comments that if there's anything that economic development can do, we are also here to support you in any way that we can. So thank you. And thanks, Christina, very much.
Yes, of course, of course. So
I
is.
I just add one thing. I just saw the question, do any of the students on campus need groceries, toiletries, ice cream? I think that students have appetites. And so anything you can do to, you know, if you want to figure out a way to have, I don't know, pizzas delivered or something like that, I'm sure they would appreciate it. But their basic needs are taken care of. I would say their emotional needs can always be addressed in different ways by this community.
Certainly. Well, I think our reality is the dynamics are changing frequently, and perhaps in another month or maybe more, we can revisit a similar conversation like this. And in that spirit, I would also say for anyone who's on the call, if there's another couple of speakers or industries you'd like to hear from, I'm happy to set something up in the next week or 2 weeks also. But for today, I'll just say thank you, especially Dr. Ward, Dr. Wee, for your time. I know you're juggling a lot, so we really appreciate your input today and joining us. And thank you to everyone else who's tuned in. Have a good Friday. The days seem long, but the weeks go fast and months are over even quicker, it seems like. I'm not sure what's happening with the time continuum in the moment, but a genuine thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank all of you.
Thank you all.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Thank you all much.